cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting sick or whatever, but my voice is a little bit raspy today. But anyways, new video. This morning, I saw a new video by the Prison Guard channel, not the Prison Guard channel. Shout out to Hector Bravo. If you guys didn't see the video, make sure you go check it out. I'll try to leave a link somewhere up here to that video so you can check it out and then come back and see this. But today's video by Hector was regarding the infamous, mysterious, and mythical Green Wall. A lot of people like to ask him all the time about Green Wall, and now and then I get asked about it. I had somebody ask me the other day, what is a Green Wall? Well, I don't know what a Green Wall is, but I know what the Green Wall was in prison. I agree to an extent with what Hector was talking about as far as there was an ex-lieutenant that was basically the founding member of Green Wall. He was from Salinas Valley State Prison, and he rolled over on the group that he started and wrote a book, and he's pushing hard. He's constantly pushing for that, and he's trying to make it seem as though the incident that occurred that created the Green Wall is what's still occurring now, which is not true. And so here's the thing. We're going to go like this. It was in the late 90s, as far as I remember, where that incident occurred in Salinas Valley on Thanksgiving Day. What I know of it to be is there were two Southern Raza that were walking. For whatever reason, the COs called one over and wanted to pat him down. During the pat down, they got a little bit more physical than the Raza felt, that Vato felt was necessary. So he took flight. He got off. He starts fighting. And because it was, I believe, 2 or 3 officers on him, the guy that he had been walking with, he jumped in to try to, help out. Those officers were, of course, getting very physical with those 2 individuals. And what wound up happening was every officer that responded, so did a Southerner, until you had basically a full-fledged riot between the prison guards and the Raza from Southern California. That is one of those things that's like spur of the moment, not planned whatsoever, because had it been planned, it would have been a whole lot worse for everyone involved. There could have been lives lost on both sides. The problem and why that lieutenant felt that it was necessary to create Green Wall after the fact was this. After quelling the disturbance, after getting all the Raza from Southern California that was on the yard in restraints, the COs then proceeded to break arms and wrists and legs. My understanding was they were taking them to the small side and they were breaking stuff on them. Now, obviously, those that were getting having their bones broken were letting the cops know, okay, you did that, but we're going to run it back. And so there were threats involved. And from my understanding, and by the way, I did time with guys that were involved in that incident later, after they had got out of the shoe, and, I had done time with them, and they were running me down, and, what happened. They said it was no joke, it was rough. But anytime you assault a staff in the CDC, it's going to be very rough. So what happened was, after everything had been done, allegedly that lieutenant that wrote the book called everybody together and said, listen, we just attacked the most violent group on the main line. These guys are going to retaliate, and we need to form something of our own and protect each other. So everybody, that lieutenant and all of the correctional officers involved, they created this thing, allegedly created this thing called Green Wall. And instead of just creating it to protect each other, they made it a gang. Like I've mentioned before, and like I mentioned in the video I did with Hector, a lot of COs will start in the department one way, square, clean cut, whatever, maybe partied a little bit, whatever it was, but not gang members. And then they get around the convicts and they start trying to act like them. So, like I said, instead of the Green Wall being everybody that was involved on that day protecting each other, they then started recruiting. And you would have a Green Wall guy go to another joint. And then he would convince somebody to be part of it, and they would recruit, and they would recruit. And that's how it went around. I was never in Salinas Valley, but I remember being in New Folsom, and they had an officer show up. I was in the hole at the time. I was in AdSeg. And they had this CO show up, and he was new to the institution and was immediately assigned to AdSeg. And one of the other raza said, hey, I remember that vato. He's Green Wall. And he always had a lime green handkerchief. And it was usually in the back pocket, right? Sometimes it would be up front. But wherever it was sticking out enough for you to notice him. And anytime I was around an officer or a correctional officer that supposedly had a background related to Green Wall, every one of them had that, a green paño, a green handkerchief hanging out of one of their pockets. I never saw them hanging out like blatant, but it was always in a way where you were going to see that. Did I ever have a run-in with Green Wall? I didn't. But was on the blue side, on the convict side, was it known that there was a group that was treacherous, that'll set you up? Yeah. But Green Wall was not the first CO gang, and it won't be the last. The ones that were called the Sharks and Corcoran Shoe were extremely treacherous. But, I remember, everybody knows about Corcoran Shoe. And I believe in a 13-month time, they killed 12 inmates, something like that. I could be wrong on the months, right? But I know there was like 12 people murdered by cops in Corcoran, right? But what people don't realize is in that same time period, there was 13 people killed in Tehachapi by guards, or mysterious deaths occurred that a lot of people say it could only be the guards. There was one where a guy, he had stabbed a sergeant, allegedly stabbed a sergeant in another institution. When you do something like that, they immediately transfer you to another institution. So he had supposedly stabbed a sergeant. He shows up to Tehachapi with broken arms, both of his arms broken, a lot of injuries to his face and head, rest of his body, but yet somehow tied himself up and hung himself. Strange. These are things that people don't talk about. Maybe I'll do some research and try to tell you about Tehachapi. But Tehachapi was a place where for a long time it was considered like a 50-50 yard, right? And that started in the 90s, right? If you went down there and you weren't on some weird case or, you were active, you went down there and you got off. And the cops knew that you were going to, and there was a lot of people that the cops killed. I've told the story before where in 1997 I got out of the shoe, Pelican Bay shoe, and I got transferred down there. And I wound up stabbing somebody in R&R. Like, it's just, Tehachapi was wild. And it was like, honestly, like the safest place to get off on somebody was probably R&R, because anywhere else, especially in the chow hall, they were going to kill you. There was a specific guy. I'm not going to say the name of him or the person that, I'm just going to tell you this. There's a very famous murder that took place in the CDC. And there's a guy, I'll say the guy's name. There's a guy by the name of Tiny who did some real scandalous stuff to the guy that was already dead, right? Very disrespectful. And if my numbers are right, 3 different times in the chow hall in Tehachapi, I wasn't there all those times, but it was known. 3 different times somebody tried to move on him in the chow hall, and the cops shot those guys in the head every time, killing them. Any channel that has really a lot of time to do the research, I would suggest do the story on Tehachapi. All the murders that went down there at the hands of guards. I think it would be an eye-opener for a lot of people. Maybe I'll do it. I'll do some research, but I think that everybody would be shocked because you guys all hear about Corcoran and all the stuff that was happening there. Places like New Folsom and Pelican Bay and High Desert, even, they have these reputations, well-deserved. But that's convict on convict violence. Sometimes convict on COs. But Corcoran has earned its reputation, and I'm surprised Tehachapi's story is still quiet. But anyways, that's my story for the day, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back tomorrow. Kick it, chop it up a little bit. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, right? I'm out. What the hell?